live.
Welcome to the Rampant Discourse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Paul Essen. I'm joined by my regular alcoholics, Travis Hudson and Andrew Riley. And Travis, what are we doing today?
Well, hopefully we're actually recording this time because
And we
we're
recorded
drinking
last
beer.
time. I'll get to that. Go ahead.
We're drinking beer number 2 from our Kalea. I really need to confirm how that's pronounced. Brewer's Advent Calendar for 2022.
So, as Travis alluded to, the recording, the VOD for our last effort did not survive. We are streaming this live on Twitch here, so if you're watching this right now, come join in the conversation. Thank you. And if you're catching this later on, come join us on Twitch later on. We'll be continuing to drink the rest of the beers in this calendar. But for stupid reasons, I did not properly set up the settings so that the stream would also be recorded so we could put it up on YouTube later on. So we drank the first beer in the calendar with a stream live but no recording. So we can talk about how that one went really fast and get into tonight's beer maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall correctly, we got 2 thumbs down and a thumbs up from Travis in terms of that beer. And
Perfectly serviceable Hell's Lager.
It is a fine enough beer, but I want something more, and I did perhaps have the most negative comments on it. I likened it to a Heineken, and apparently none of us particularly like Heineken.
so I think one thing we started off the last episode with was kind of explaining our different tastes in beer, to kind of give people kind of some background on it. So Travis, do you want to start us off with what kind of beers you're kind of into?
So, usually if I'm ever at like a work happy hour, especially, like I tend to be the dark beer guy. I know Andrew will go even darker than me, but I've fallen into the local craft brewery trend of hazy IPAs, which to me were new in 2020. I know they were not new in 2020. But
They were really taking off over 2018 to 2020, though. So yeah, it makes
yeah,
sense.
And I think we debated this maybe last time, but we can rehash it here a little bit. Would be the reason I liked hazies when I didn't really like regular IPAs is I liked the kind of fruity notes of the. They're not even adding fruit to it, but just like however they unfilter or don't filter it. I guess it's just they don't unfilter it; they just don't filter it, so it becomes unfiltered. Leaves or the hops they're using, or something that imparts those flavors. But I kind of like that. But I'll still gravitate towards a stout, a Guinness, not so much a porter. That's leaning a little bit more into the bitter. So I guess my overall take is like I don't like bitter beer.
I do like a bitter beer here and there. I like sours. I like extra stout bitters, for example. I like pretty much any kind of beer. There are exceptions. I don't like hazy IPAs. I do like IPAs in general, and I've come into my own recently just drinking a whole bunch of imperial IPAs, double IPAs. Really liking that heavier alcohol content that the craft brewers are putting into things right now. I like dark beers. I like light beers. I don't typically like fruity beers, and I tend to be less favorable towards things like Hefeweizens or things that would be not traditionally beer under the very strict rules of the German purity laws. It doesn't mean that I don't have Hefeweizens I like, but a Hefeweizen is a wheat beer, and wheat is not one of the acceptable ingredients because, among other things, they're preserving wheat to make bread, and you're making the beer from the barley. And so beer is going to be barley and hops and water, and that's it. Anything other than that can be hit or miss. But obviously, inside of that, even though I will drink anything and often like anything, I'll like certain things more than others. I do tend to like darker beers. I like a strong hop flavor. I'm fine with some really good malts, but I also will be particular about the kinds of hops that I like. So where the hops are coming from can impact things much more than I might expect. And if it's well malted and not burnt, it's quite nice sometimes. But that's where, last year, we did this last year too. We had a couple of really dark beers, including a Keller beer and a Rausch. That was fantastic. But that's a harder sell for a lot of customers, but I'd like to try everything. So this is one of the reasons I really like doing the advent calendar is you get to try a lot of new stuff.
I'm much less of a beer snob than you two. I don't like IPAs. I don't like bitter stuff. I don't like crazy stuff. Other than that, I'm pretty open to different things.
So no milkshake IPAs for you.
Not a big fan of crazy food plus IPA. No.
But just
I
to be clear, that's not a milkshake with IPA. That's just a style of IPA. It's called milkshake IPA.
milkshake plus an IPA might not be that bad.
I've had a Guinness shake.
I like my Marzen style kind of beers, the Vienna Lager, Oktoberfest kind of beers. I really like the Rausch beer from last year's calendar. Um, Other than that, I'm open. So yeah, should we go ahead and start with
So what are we drinking tonight?
the stage beer?
I can try to pronounce it. Andrew's far more up on German, even though I'm trying to do German and Duolingo. We have Turmweisse. It's a Bayerische Weisser Spezialisate or something. I almost went French there.
So obviously this is the Weissbier. That means it's a Hefeweizen we're drinking tonight. It's a white beer, but it's white because you make it with wheat, and the term means tower. And the brewery here is the Weissbierbrauer of Kuchlbauer, and they have this image on the front of the can that Paul was showing off earlier. That is actually a tower that they have at their brewery. This particular tower was designed by the architect. I have it written down here, but my handwriting is atrocious. There we go.
I was gonna say, like, that's an actual building?
Yes, and in fact, you guys can't see it, but it's shown on the stream right now. If you look to the left of Paul, you can see the actual building that is represented on the can. No, other direction, because you're reversed. Yeah, there you go. That is the same thing on the can. Show off your cans, guys. Show off your cans. There you go. So it looks just like that. And so this was, a sort of a fantastical building designed by Friedrich Huntertswasser. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name there, but he designed it, but he passed away after designing it before it was built. And then it was actually opened to the public in 2010, although the brewery has been around for longer than that. This is it reads, Kuchelturm ein Huntertswasser Architect-Projekt, geplant.
Yeah, I'm trying to show it.
Yeah, but it looks like it's not coming through. Und bearbeitet von Architect Peter Pelikan. Peter actually finally built it. It's like a mini tourist attraction. The brewery's very, very well known in the area, it looks like, for doing Hefes. They make wheat beers, more wheat beers, and pretty much nothing but wheat beers.
So they brew the beer in the tower, or the tower is just purely like a landmark?
The tower is a landmark, and they do have things in there. They have a bunch of glass. I was reading about that. They have a bunch of glasses. They have a copy of the German purity laws. We'll get back to the German purity laws later on, probably. But they don't do the brewing in the tower. No, the tower is next to their brewery. So the German purity laws, I mentioned that you could only have those 3 ingredients. Obviously, this is still counted as beer by pretty much everybody today because the German purity laws are not really enforced in any particular way, but the meaning of them historically is one of the reasons why German beers are so well regarded and why the German influence on beers elsewhere in the world has had such a large impact. It's one of the reasons why I'm going to be particularly anti-American beer. Because American beers are going to be less flavorful. They have less interest in making sure the malt and the hops are balanced and potent. They just want it to be mildly alcoholic water. And I'm not interested in mildly alcoholic water. I want it really alcoholic, and I want it to have flavor. And then for extension and to keep the flavor mild and also to keep it cheaper, many American beers also use rice in their brewing process as an additional grain, and that's just not where I want. If I want to drink rice, I'm going to drink sake.
Which is funny that you like how much you always lambast beers that use rice, and like, because doesn't like Budweiser or something, isn't it like use more rice than malt or something?
You're going to use that's going to be a little more difficult to answer this one because the malting process is essentially making the Maillard reaction out of your grain. So you put the grain over fire and you brown it. That's malting it. What this does is it causes the hydrocarbons that exist in the grain to burn a little bit and become caramelized. it brings it in more into a sugar thing. What that does is it feeds the yeast that are making the beer alcoholic and to a lesser extent carbonating it. But it also brings a sweetness to the drink in the end. Beer is sweet in and of itself. It doesn't always taste sweet. It's one of those great jokes that I heard in college. We're all mature, so I can go ahead and say this one. The professor is talking about the biology class, and he's like, yeah, semen is mostly sugar because the sperm need the energy in order to be able to swim and stay active.
I can't believe you're telling this on
the first night. First night. Here we go, guys. Second night. And the young lady in the class is like, well, then why doesn't it taste sweet? Oh, right. That I know what sperm tastes like. What am I talking about? Sure. Things that have sugar in them don't necessarily taste sweet, even though they are full of sweetness. How sweet a beer tastes tends to come from the maltiness, but it can be overpowered by other flavors, such as the bitterness of the hops, and that balance between the malt and the hops, and how the alcohol tastes, because alcohol has its own flavor, which is a little bit bitter, from the yeast eating it, and then the yeast eat the sugar. So if the yeast eat all that sugar and convert it into alcohol, you have a very alcoholic thing, and it's a very dark beer, and it's very bitter sometimes. And that will not be as pleasurable a drink maybe as something that has a little bit lower alcohol content that has a better mix. So this is why beer making, we have all these different beers. What is beer? 3 ingredients. It's all about the mixture and the ratio.
You speak very glowingly of the German purity laws, and you're, let's be honest, a little snobbish about your beer. It has to only be these 3 ingredients. I'm going to throw
I'm a snob,
a
sure.
completely unfair hypothetical at you. Do you think that the world would be a better place in terms of beer if Germany had won World War I?
Okay.
Would German culture have spread, and these purity laws have been
I don't think
more
so,
strongly enforced worldwide?
because Germans were migrating already and have brought this to a lot of other countries already. For example, there is a very strong German tradition in Mexico, one of our neighbors. If you drink a Mexican beer, it's going to be much more likely to be in the Germanic tradition. We listen to the Mexican music, and it's a lot of oompa bands. Why? Because of the German migrants. Now, that's not the only reason, right? But this is a through line that you have there, where the traditions of a subset of the migrants influenced enough of the culture that it carries on that tradition. But we have plenty of German migrants in America, too. And many of them went into brewing. So why is our brewing so bad? I can't answer that. There's always something else involved in it. And maybe it's prohibition. The brewing that was going on before prohibition is very different than the brewing that happens after. So that may have been a part of it as well.
Maybe it says damn Brits.
Well, going all the way back to the rice, but I was going to bring, that led us down the rabbit hole on malting, was the fact that I think the big beer companies, I thought you had mentioned, like, maybe used some rice in theirs, but then like some craft brewers are now starting to tout if they make a rice lager as if it's like the next. It's almost like it's that's going to be the next big thing, which is kind of ironic when it's like, yeah, from your opinion, they're now making like fundamentally worse beer by using rice.
I don't think that it's going to be necessarily worse. It's just going to be very, very different. In the same way that Hefeweizen, a wheat beer, is very, very different from a barley beer. Like, we're drinking a Hefeweizen, and you've had barley beers in the past. You can tell there's a texture difference and there's a flavor difference. Even if you keep the malt at the same level to the best of your ability, it's going to malt differently because these grains have different specific heats. They respond to the flames differently. They'll brown faster or slower. They have more sugar content before and after the processing. That changes the nature of the beer and the flavors of the beer, and as I said, even the texture. It seems weird to talk about texture for a liquid. I mean, it's a liquid, right? How does it have a texture? But these beers do have textures. There's some grittiness and graininess. Even the filtered beers have some level of grit left, where you can feel that and taste that, and it changes how the beer reacts for you.
And I know it's not related to the malting, but even just like the fizziness of the beer, the carbonation of the beer can change, and that's where like nitros are a thing, right? It's like
Hmm.
it's not carbonated as much, or I don't really know what nitro means either.
So one of the things I learned fairly recently in my beer experiences is that obviously the yeast produces carbon dioxide during the brewing process. But for most beers that you drink, that is not the primary source of carbonation. They have additional carbonation being added into the process so that they have this foaminess that adds to the head. Um, but in nitro beer, my understanding of that is that instead of adding additional carbon dioxide, they'll add nitrogen, and that will increase the fizziness, but not change the flavor profile quite the same way.
Hmm. Okay, so
Because
it actually increases the like, so you have a bigger head on a
you
nitro
can
beer.
easily have a bigger head. Pretty sure that Guinness with their cans, because they're all about the pour from the tap, and to recreate that they had the little ball that when you pop the can the ball drops, right. So that ball agitates the beer as it goes down, which releases the carbonation that's already in there. But I believe they also have a small amount of nitrogen packed into that, so that as it goes down, it releases that and causes it to foam up as it's going down as well.
I think also you're supposed to pour it out of the can, right? Because Paul admonished me many podcasts ago that I was drinking it out of the can. I was like, yeah, you're supposed to drink it out of a can, right? Oh no, it's straight from the bottle. You pour it out of the can. Because I think that widget you're talking about in the can, I think also I don't know if it gets activated when it goes down. I think it actually gets activated as you're pouring the beer out. I think it's
Hmm.
why you're supposed to pour the Guinness out. I think. I could be totally wrong.
I'll be
But
honest,
I think
I don't know for sure here.
but I would assume that's why you're supposed to pour it out of the can.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is that a little over 10 years ago, we took a trip. My wife and I took a trip to Ireland, and they made a big deal about there's a specific way you're supposed to pour the beer from the tap. And I think the tap had two different levers. One was for when you're pouring the beer, and then the other way when you're building up the head or something like that. And I remember being told distinctly like that the cans were designed in such a way that you were supposed to pour it out to have
So
that
when they
head.
pour Guinness in Ireland, are they like tilting the glass and trying to get as little head and everything as possible?
Oh yeah, we went to the brewery and they're like,
Okay.
you're supposed to tilt it at this like 45-degree angle or whatever, and you pull it down, and you pour it up to like I'm gonna get the specifics wrong, but it's something like 2/3 of the way, and then you switch the tap to the other way so it's doing the other type of pour, and then you straighten the glass out to finish it up.
Yeah, because sometimes it's interesting if you can if you're actually at the bar and you can see the bartender to watch them pour a Guinness and just see like what their tactics or technique are for because some of them are just like and like it
Yeah.
foams all over and they're just like wait and wait and wait and like lop it off and like pour some more or something like that, and then others are like very meticulous about it. So it's interesting. That's like the only beer that I really see that amount of not flexibility but like wide range of techniques used for it.
Travis, you worked fast food for a while, right? When we had to serve the sodas, did you ever have that situation, or do you have coworkers who are like 45-degree angles on the sodas, or straight in sodas, and then it's like, oh, it's foaming up, and swipe it off? Did you have anyone who did that? Because I did. I thought they
we
were
never
weird.
we never did, yeah, we never did 45-degree, mostly because like when you're working fast food it's just like you gotta scoop the ice, put it in there. You're like doing because you're usually like doing multiple of them at a time too. Like yeah, no, there's no worry about that. But I wish we had a self serve, although probably not because the thing I probably would have been responsible for maintaining it, and I wouldn't have wanted to deal with it.
So enough talking about non-beers. Well, no, not non-beer stuff. Non this specific beer stuff. Let's talk about this beer. Um, I what does it smell like? Because that was the first thing that struck me. I like the color, but it has a very distinctive smell to me, and I don't really know what I'm smelling. I'm not sure I like it, but
Uh-oh.
well, the smell. I'm just
Yeah,
specifically the smell.
right now my biggest answer for that is that it smells like a Hefeweizen. This is what
Yeah,
a wheat beer smells like.
yeah, like it. I don't think it has the like the banana smell that you get from some
No,
heifers. Like I don't get that from it. It's. I think the
I don't
answer
know.
is it smells like bread, kind of, right? I mean, which
Makes
that's
sense.
what it's supposed to smell like, right? If it's made out of wheat. I know you want a fancier term than that. I know from
It
the.
smells like crudité.
Thank you, Mehmet Oz.
Yes, Andrew knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm not the beer snob. I don't really know what a Hefeweizen smells like. All I know is that when I smelled it, I'm like, that's got a smell. I'm not sure it's a positive smell. It smelled not like bread to me, not like banana to me, not like anything that starts with a B. It smelled, I don't know, a little rank, and that sounds really bad. That's why I'm kind of hesitant with the word, but um, I definitely had like a recoiling reaction when I smelled it at first. The taste is actually, I think, quite nice, but the smell kind of turned me off initially.
Although I will say, like, I think I probably noticed this with other beers too, and Andrew might know the chemical reason for this too. Like, I seem to always get more aroma out of the beer by smelling the head.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm smelling it now, like I barely get anything, but like that initial pour, and there's like an inch of head, and I make sure to smell it then because that seems to be when I get all the
That's
aroma.
the bubbles popping, right?
Yeah. So your sense of smell is obviously sensing particles of whatever it is that's being smelled. So the gross moment. You're in the bathroom, you smell the urine, you smell the feces. Little pieces of urine and feces are in your nose, right? It's happening. You smell the beer. Pieces of beer are going into your nose. It's a lot easier for beer to get into your nose when it's already being carried on a bubble. So the extra aeration of the carbon dioxide or the nitrogen or whatever it is that's bubbling it allows the small particulates of the beer to get to your nostrils more readily. When you're in there, little pieces are still coming off, but it's much fewer than when it's got the head going. So yeah, the head is going to be the most nose worthy. Most beers tend to have some sort of floral characteristic of the nose because that's the hops coming through, and the hops have a strong smell. I don't recall smelling anything particularly floral when I was pouring and got the best nose there. So I think this is one where the grain is coming through stronger than the hops, and drinking it, it's not super hoppy, so that makes a little bit of sense as well. They're balancing it on the lower side of the hops here.
Yeah, I think when you were talking, and Paul and I were taking our first drinks and talking about sweet stuff with your weird school story or whatever you told us.
Sorry.
um, Andrew's probably gonna now disagree with me, but like, this seems like it has a sweeter quality.
I can absolutely see that.
Probably because I don't get the bitterness from any of the hops really.
Well, so I was just going to say, we're about 20, 25 minutes into the first episode I guess the second episode of a 24-day series. And Andrew's already referenced semen, urine, and feces.
That's all tonight.
All going in your mouth and your nose, too.
All related to the beer that we're drinking and smelling. And he thinks this is somehow appealing to our audience. He's like, I know how to appeal to our audience.
Tell him
I'm
the
gonna relate
truth.
this beer to semen, feces, and urine.
It's gonna make a great thumbnail.
Yeah. Instead of us three, we're gonna have semen, feces, and urine.
It'll be like rock, paper, scissors.
I'm semen.
What? I don't know which one I want to claim next.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't really know. I guess semen was probably arguably the best of them.
I don't know. Apparently, urine actually is antiseptic. We're going down a really weird road now, but no. But if you read about it, prior to the 1800s, when people didn't know what medicine was, there were apparently home remedies about if you drink your own urine, or if you rub urine on your face, and it turns out some of it's actually kind of true. Yeah, not to the extent they probably thought it was, but apparently it's there's not toxins in it. It actually has some sort of antiseptic quality to it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and say if you ever want to think about how far we've advanced as a species, and I encourage you to do some reading on what did George Washington die of, because as near as I can tell, one day I was kind of curious because I think my daughters were asking how did George Washington die, and I looked it up, and this is a bit of an exaggeration, but only a bit. It sounded like he went out one day, came back with a cough, and the doctors are like, okay, we need to put leeches on you, inject you with mercury, do all this bloodletting, and then somehow he died the next day. And it's like, gee, I can't imagine what
We
happened.
don't know why. We did everything we could.
Yeah. We did everything we could to like kill the man after he came back with a cough.
You know what? Those people.
Medicine back then was just God, a disaster.
Medicine as a modern-ish thing only really dates back to maybe Civil War time for America. So like 1850 and beyond, you start to have real medicine. Before then, you had some things that worked, but if you wanted actual things that were going to heal you, you went to the quack medicine man, and you went to the witch doctors, and you went to the actual witches who were doing with herbal stuff that was really traditional, but.
The actual witches?
The actual witches being the women who were involved in
witches.
Yeah, who do midwifery, as well as But this is why they got called witches frequently. These people who did this kind of stuff, because they were engaged in things that ended up putting them on the wrong side of the culture at the time, shall we say?
And turn people into newts.
Yeah, and that happens too. If you eat the right herb in just the right way, and it's a full moon, you might turn into a newt.
Or you might just cure your cough because you ate the right herb that actually has penicillin in it or whatever.
Calendula.
I'm surprised you. When was penicillin discovered?
It's like
that right off the top of their head.
It's the first antibiotic, penicillin. I think it's early 20th century. Like
that's what I thought. Like that's to me when the beginning. I don't know because you said before Civil War. Paul knows more about the Civil War than I do. All I ever hear about the Civil War is like they're like, chop it off.
Yeah, but that was they were really good at it by that point.
At least.
Yeah, but
I guess that's a step. I guess that's a step forward from leeches and bloodletting.
Yeah, that's a huge step.
Amputations are a good idea.
Hey, there's something really wrong with this. Let's take it off.
I guess as long as they knew how to stop the bleeding that they were causing by amputating.
Yeah.
Oh, you sprained an ankle? Let's cut it off.
Let's cut it off. Here,
yeah.
we'll light a torch or something and make sure you don't bleed to death afterwards.
With no anesthetic. Anesthesia was something that was just being identified around that same time period.
Anesthetic was this.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty much.
Rice beer.
Really, really stronger version of this.
Pour a fifth of vodka in him, and then slice off his leg because he took a ball to it.
Well, because that's what I mean, and I know this is common knowledge at this point, but I did read like the comic book history of beer, and like they didn't know why, but they just do like, hey, if we leave like essentially like accidental beer, right? They would like leave bread and water or like whatever. There'd be some like incidental yeast in the air that landed in the water and like create beer. Essentially, they're like, hey, we don't get sick if we drink this water. Let's keep drinking this water.
And we feel funny.
So getting drunk is an interestingly human thing because monkeys will drink that water as well, but they drink a small amount of it. It starts to affect their mentality and they stop. Humans don't, which is very, very interesting.
It's because monkeys are smart.
Monkeys may well be smarter than us, especially after we've had a few.
To bring it full circle, though, monkeys do throw their feces
around.
Yeah, so they throw their feces 6 inches around.
I had somewhere I was going and I've completely lost it now.
Don't know where to go
I can't.
From this topic now.
We could discuss the beer.
So you mentioned the color. This is a very this color is exactly what you want out of a beer in terms of its color. I mean, it's hard to see now because we've been drinking it for a while, but it's got this golden amber. It's slightly hazy. It's translucent, but not perfectly see-through. This is a good-looking color for a beer, right?
You say see-through as you like your glass disappears in the background.
You can't see it. It's John Cena.
It's kind of that perfect midpoint, right? Of it's not so filtered that you can just see through it like water, but it's not cloudy like an actual hazy IPA is, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's coming across in the video, but like your beer seems a lot lighter than mine, Travis. If you hold yours up,
it's been spread out a little bit more. He's only got a little bit left. He's been drinking pretty steadily there.
Yeah, like mine seems much more of an amber hue.
It might be our background.
No, I honestly think that it has more to do with the light bending because of the shape of your glass.
Okay.
because my is also larger and it looks more like Paul's, but it doesn't have the curve at the bottom, so that may be part of it. But also, you just have less in it left. Now, when I have just a couple drops left, it might look like that.
Or maybe I'm drinking a different beer.
We did have that last year where we were a little concerned, but our cans all look the same tonight, so we think we got it right.
Wasn't that the weird thing last year? Was like I thought there was one where the cans were all the same, but Paul's clearly looked different. I don't know.
We had two, I think, where the labels were distinctly different, and one where the labels were mostly the same, but there was a difference where we looked closely enough and we spotted it after that.
There
So,
was
like,
one where a viewer told us that like we took the label off. There was two.
oh
labels
right, there
on
were
the
two
can,
labels on.
and
Yeah,
we took the label off to find another label like actually printed on the can itself, because most of these cans
they have a
people
label
probably
printed
don't
on.
really
Yeah,
care about this, but they're labels that are like stickered on.
yes,
as opposed
it's a
to printed
sticker,
on the
sticker
can.
rather than print. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is not uncommon in most American microbreweries, as far as I know of. Like most of them, I think, are going to be stickered like that. I'm sure it's cheaper than printing on an actual can.
On the bottom, it has stamped the expiration date. This beer expires in March of 2024.
That's an impressive shelf life.
It is. I think I want to drink it well before then, especially now that it's open. All right, let's go ahead and finish this off here.
So, does anybody want to give their initial thoughts on the beer?
I don't tend to like Hefeweizens. I don't like beers that try and do too much with too many different things. But that's not to say that I don't like some Hefeweizens. There are Hefeweizens that are fairly common. Probably one of the most common Hefeweizens to find in the United States is Blue Moon, and sometimes the Blue Moon's just a good beer. So, and I'm going to call it a beer. It's not a beer, but we're going to call it a beer, right? It's a beer. This is better than a Blue Moon kind of thing, right? So this is a Hefeweizen that is a good Hefeweizen. I don't usually like it, but this one succeeded doing everything it wanted to do and doing it well. It is not exceptional. It doesn't stand out in any particular way. It doesn't have a really great flavor where they've like shown this awesome hops profile. It's not super sweet, which is probably a good thing. But the malting is not something coming through, and it's not this varietal of wheat that has this incredible flavor. The alcohol content is 5.9%, I think I mentioned, which is okay for a beer, but it's not really high, which is gonna be like, yeah, this is a great beer, it got me going. But nor is it low enough that it's like, okay, this is pointless. It's a really all around solid, in the middle beer.
Yeah, I think this is like good beer number 2, right? Like the first one was kind of like very close to like what an American might be. I mean, if that's their point with this calendar, kind of is like to introduce German beer outside of Germany. I think this is kind of like here's a very typical Hefeweizen.
But high quality one, a high quality one.
But like you said, like it doesn't have like any exoticness to it or anything like that. It's just a good quality Hefeweizen. It's
for a brewery that specializes in Hefeweizens, wheat beers. You expect them to have a lot of different types. This feels like probably whatever is going to be their most generic, their baseline that they're going to expand on with something else. And I would be interested to see what their higher alcohol content Hefeweizen would be, or one where they decided to go hoppier. I would like to see that from them if I were to drink another beer from this brewery.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is like their house beer, kind of like this is if you went to the brewery, like this is what's going to be on tap year after year after year.
I don't know if I have much else to add. I thought the flavor was fine, nothing special, but not bad. It had a pleasing color, like as we spoke about. A little turned off by the smell. Surprisingly high alcohol content, I actually think. It didn't taste like it was approaching 6% ABV.
No, absolutely, you're right.
It tasted like it was a little bit of a weaker beer, so that's a little bit of a point in its favor, because it's kind of nice to have a higher alcoholic content beer that doesn't taste like it. That you kind of, it's an easy drink. So
Although that can be dangerous at a bar if you don't know you're drinking a 6% beer.
it can be, but I appreciate a beer that can, um, I appreciate any drink honestly that is high in alcohol content that doesn't taste like it. That seems like it has that requires a particular set of skills. It's a Liam Neeson type of beer, you know. It's got
Liam
a
Neeson
particular set
probably
of
would
skills.
like this beer.
That doesn't rely well, and yeah, that doesn't rely on like sweetness to counter it, right? Because I mean that's a common thing. Like that's why you mix Jack Daniels with Coke or any other number of mixed
A
drinks.
Long Island iced tea.
Yeah, like you're kind of masking the alcohol with sweetness, and this did not do that. Not like 6%.
But it was
High.
it was still quite sweet, as we mentioned. It's a sweet bread, but it's bread and a little bit sweet. But it's not so sweet that you're gonna drink it like, oh yeah, I'm drinking a Coke or something. No, this is lightly sweet.
This will be a difficult beer for me to judge, and yet judge we must. Are you all ready to give the thumbs up or thumbs down
I'm ready.
of judgment? All right. 3, 2, 1. Oh,
Paul's
so
down?
You two are both wrong this time.
Pretty much how I figured,
Oh,
based on
sorry.
based on our commentary. That's pretty much how I figured it was gonna go.
Yeah, it's not a super overwhelming thumbs up, but as I mentioned, I like pretty much every kind of beer, and even Hefeweizens. This is a solid opening for a Hefeweizen. I would like more. I would be much more engaged and much more enthusiastic to give a thumbs up for a better Hefeweizen. But you're going to have a hard time, I think, to find me giving a thumbs down unless there's something wrong, because I love beers. I did give a thumbs down to the beer last episode, the hell behind Travis's shoulder there. So it's worth noting that I'm contradicting myself there. But as I said, it sort of tasted like a Heineken, and I don't like Heinekens. So whatever it was in the varietal of hops that they used, because it was fairly hoppy, did not appeal to me in the same way that Heineken doesn't. And there's going to be moments where it just doesn't work for a particular person, and that's one that didn't work for me.
I'm gonna push back just ever so slightly because you mentioned I think a couple times that almost almost nonchalantly like that this isn't really a beer, right? Because
Sure.
it has rice in it. And
Well,
you said how I like-
none of these have rice. This is wheat beer, but wheat beers are not beers because in the German purity rule, you can't have a beer unless it is these three things. So, per the German
Sorry,
rules,
the
it's
wheat.
not a beer. Are we going to call it a beer? We're absolutely going to call it a beer because it is in the beer style, but it's a wheat beer.
So you're willing to relax your like I like all beers, including wheat beers, a little bit.
I am less likely to like wheat beers because I do like the barley flavor that a genuine beer comes with. I do like other flavors as well, and there are wheat beers that I like, and this one is a wheat beer that I liked well enough. Again, I don't want to give it a glowing review, but it's more positive than negative, so I'm going to give it a thumbs up here.
All right, Travis.
I mean, it's kind of similar to Andrew. I know that's kind of my theme, is I'm easily swayed, right? No, it's a
Well, let Paul give us all the negatives, and you can come back and be the man in the middle.
Maybe you'll change your vote.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
yeah,
talk about the
let's see,
negatives.
Yeah,
then.
convince me, Paul.
All right, this beer sucked donkey balls. And it tasted like semen and feces and urine all combined. No, honestly, this is. I had a hard time. I could have easily have gone thumbs up too. This is very thoroughly middle of the road to me. The taste was fine. If I had ordered it at a bar, this is from last year. This is kind of my how I judge things. If I ordered it at a bar, would I order it again? Maybe. Like it wasn't offensive at all. I don't. I think tomorrow I'm gonna forget about it and I'm not gonna remember it and I'm not gonna seek it out ever again. But I don't regret drinking it.
Are you going to forget about it when it has this awesome architecture and art on the can? Doesn't the can sell you?
I don't like to judge a beer by its can. I don't like to judge a book by its cover. The can is fine. The color of the beer was fine, but that's not enough, honestly. And the smell kind of turned me off a little bit.
I was gonna say you
And
commented on the smell a couple times.
that might have been the tiebreaker, to be honest. Like, if the smell had been nice,
And then the
maybe I
nose
would've
is
given
the
it a thumbs
first
up.
thing that you get. So if you get a bad first impression, it's hard to recover from that sometimes.
Yeah, and so it's possibly not fair, but I think that was a tiebreaker. Is that the smell kind of turned me off, and the taste didn't save it.
So remember, young men, wear your deodorant.
Or cologne,
So Paul just
X
stealed.
body spray.
I think Paul just stealed my resolve actually then, because I actually liked the first smells I got out of this. So maybe that colored me the other way to be more biased to like it. But yeah, I mean it sounds like complimenting or damning with faint praise, I think is the phrase, to say it's a perfectly serviceable Hefeweizen. But I mean, not everything has to be a 10 or a 1.
This is a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, which still makes it
Thumbs up.
by our binary system still makes it an up, right? Like
Yeah, well, when we get to the 10, we're saving that double thumbs up, the extraordinary double thumbs up. But this is not it. No, this is not a double thumbs
I feel
up.
like beer number 3 is gonna have to disappoint me. I feel like I'm giving too many thumbs up already, 2 out of 2. But we've also had 2 styles I like, Hells and I guess maybe like it.
You
I
do
thought
tend to
maybe-
like your Heffens. You
Yeah,
like your
I think
Heffens.
at the top you said you didn't like Heffas, but then I'd have to go back and look at your track record on our Hefeweizens.
Oh, you're being called out.
Sure,
I'm pretty sure one of my favorite beers last year was
that was a Heffa. Absolutely, it was.
It was 3 things in one, but I think one of those 3s was a Heffa.
It was a Heffa. Yeah, the legendary Link beer is a Hefeweizen, and I did give it a thumbs up last year. It is.
To your point, that was like bordering on 8%. So that had
It was
like,
very alcoholic.
quality to it.
It was extraordinarily unique in other ways as well. It was a one of a kind beer, and even inside of that, I do remember being somewhat torn as like, this is a unique experience that needs to be given the thumbs up for its uniqueness, but was it really, really good? I think this was a more day-to-day kind of thing. Like, if you want to drink a beer, you want to drink this more frequently than you want to drink that Legend of Zelda beer.
Well, and low ABV lends itself to that. Like
Yeah.
you're more likely to crack it open on like a weeknight, say, or something, and if you are
Like tonight.
the double-digit ABVs, where you're like, yeah, maybe I should wait for the weekend for that.
All right. Well, it sounds like the consensus was unfortunately wrong in this case, and we decided to give this beer 2 thumbs up out of 3.
But no
Let us know-
universal winners yet.
No universal. We've been kind of split so far. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of the beer, and if you have which one of us is wrong. You 2 guys, obviously, and hopefully you'll tune in for the next episode. Can't stop the discourse.